Friends and SR Lounge family, my name is Post-Production Pi, Editor-in-Chief for srlounge.com. Welcome to another installment of our weekly Ordinary to Extraordinary Raw Edit featuring the Lightroom preset system version 5. Now, as always, we're going to be demonstrating how to create these effects with the preset system, but then we're going to be going back through, we'll be talking through the actual developed settings just to help everybody understand what's going into each of these looks and effects. All right, now that way, everybody that's watching, whether you own the presets or you don't own the presets, well, everybody can benefit just the same. Now, if you are interested in learning more about purchasing the SR Lounge Lightroom preset system, just click on the link below in the description and it'll take you right over to the SR Lounge store where you can read and research to your heart's content. And with that being said, let's get started. In this video, we're moving on to our first base Vivid preset example. Now, I'm sure all of you are masters of the preset system by now. It's really quite simple following the Because framework, the BCAS framework, but everything's gonna still apply. This time, we're just gonna be using different images as examples and kind of show you just how we use the Vivid presets in our workflow. So let's get started with this image. This image here was taken out in Utah, actually, in the Great Salt Lake. And we had these kayakers out there. We're just out there on this nice blue day. It looked absolutely amazing. And when these kayakers got on the water, I felt like I was actually driving by and I was like, I gotta get out of the car and shoot this because they make this perfect little, I don't know what it is, this perfect little ornament in this otherwise just completely blue scene. So I just love the way this scene looks. Now this was shot on a 5D Mark III. I was shot on a, or I was shot? Did I say I was shot? I wasn't shot while I took this image, don't worry. I'm still doing okay. All right, this was shot on a 7200 f2.8L IS USM. This was on the Mark I version, not on the new Mark II. It would be even sharper if it was on the Mark II, which I have now, but I didn't have back then. It was taken at 200 millimeters, so we have this beautiful kind of depth of field and compression going on where we get these mountains just pulled really close and it looks like it's just right behind them. In reality, it's actually quite far away. We shot this at 1/500th of a second. That way we're freezing all of our motion. We're at f8, so we're getting as sharp of an image as possible on this lens, and at ISO 100, so we're maximizing our dynamic range. Now, if you take a look at this image, it's kind of interesting to note. It really doesn't have anything to do with anything, but if we look at the histogram up here, look at how compressed the tonal range is within this image. I always get people that ask me like, oh, do I need to do a HDR in this scene? Absolutely not. An HDR is only necessary when you are shooting a scene that has a broad dynamic range to begin with. This scene has a very limited dynamic range. We have hardly any tonal range here. So there's no point in shooting HDR when you don't have 15, 16, 17, 18 stops of dynamic range in the scene. This scene has like 6, 7. If we don't count these little kayakers, then our entire tonal range is just right here in this little tiny area. Okay, so remember, use all of these different tools when they're, when they apply. When you don't need to use them, don't feel like you have to use them. You're gonna get the best images by just shooting what will work best in each scene and producing them that way. So with this shot, we're gonna get started. I've talked a lot right now. All right, we're gonna go to our Vivid Import Reset and the Vivid Import Plus profile. Now, with landscape images like this is when I do import using profile corrections, because you can really never go wrong when you import with these profile corrections. It's going to read the metadata from the lens that you used, and so long as your camera can read that metadata, it's going to automatically go down here and it will apply these profile corrections. Where is it? It's right here. So if we go into basic, we can see that enable profile corrections and remove chromatic aberration is enabled. The chromatic aberration is still actually enabled in the standard import because there's no reason to turn it off. But you can see that we do have profile corrections in this one as well. So it reads the lens profile, it can tell what you're shooting on, and it makes the adjustments accordingly to basically get your edge, your lens vignetting, and to get any of that kind of pin cushion or any type of effect we have. Here we have actually a little bit of geometric distortion here where we can see the horizon curve a little bit, and it fixes that for us, which is quite awesome. I love it. All right, so that just handles our job for us. So really when you're importing landscapes, import with the Vivid Import Plus profile, so long as you're not shooting portraits. All right, so this looks great. I'm gonna hit R just to bring up my little crop overlay. And if we wanna change this overlay here, we can just hit O and it'll cycle between different kinds of compositions. Okay, so I often use the rule of thirds. My favorite is actually the grid. That way I can just see kind of where the lines are matching up. I'm usually sticking between the grid and rule of thirds. Here we can see the horizon is actually fairly even, but I'm going to show you a little trick for Lightroom 5 users. Okay, so let's actually go out of the crop here, and we can scroll down, and this is available inside of Lightroom 5 only. Unfortunately, it's a great new feature, but we have this auto enable or auto correction enabling, okay, where we can basically set this to level our horizon. And what it's going to do is automatically measure it and level it for us. Now for this image, it was already straight, so there's not an adjustment made, but we can turn on this this little auto adjustment, and if we leave it on auto, it's going to check everything. So it's basically going to fix perspective distortion, leveling, and so forth. Or you can choose one of these individually to basically select those particular adjustments individually. It's an incredibly powerful new feature. So it's a great new add-on for Lightroom 5. Again, one of the many things that they did actually improve on inside of Lightroom 5 is right there. But for this image, it's already cropped straight. I'm just showing you guys because now that we're working on landscapes, this is something that you're going to use more often than with portraiture, because generally we're not needing to use it with portrait, or we don't want those kind of automatic adjustments with portraiture. All right, so this is really it. I have this vivid import plus profile reset. Once again, if it's labeled reset, then if you have changes to exposure and temperature, then when you reset it, it's going to actually reset exposure and temperature. And those are the only presets that do that. If they're labeled reset, they'll reset everything and it'll apply the standard settings. If they're not labeled reset, they're not going to change your exposure and your temperature. I actually got a nice effect. We can actually create like a little nighttime effect if we just kind of drop the exposure and reduce the temperature. Ooh, we have this moonscape now. How awesome. All right. Okay, we're going to just go back to where we started with. So with this vivid import plus profile reset, we get a beautiful look to this image. And if we hit before and after, you can see that it adds a lot of nice pop. It does the same thing that our vivid import preset did with the previous version of the Lightroom preset system. So if you're importing landscapes, this is what you want to stick with. Now for this image, what I'm going to do is let's go down to our saturation. Let's make a little tweak. What I want to do is I want to play with my saturation. Here we have saturate light plus blues. What that's going to do is actually drop all the blues in the image, so it kind of creates a little more vivid skies and blue tones in the image, and we can kind of play around with this and see what we like best. And I think I like that subtle drop in the blues right there. I think it looks great. So that's really all I'm going to do with this image. I feel like this image could be, like a desktop backdrop. It's so serene and calm. The only thing that would have made it better is if the water was just like glass. Like if you got up at, I don't know, butt crack of dawn and you're out there and the water was just glass, it would look absolutely even more awesome. All right, so that's it. Just a couple adjustments there. We just clicked our base, we clicked one adjustment, and that was it. So let's check out the before. Here's the before, here's the after. We have a nice vivid look to this landscape image. Very simple, very easy. This is basically how you're going to import it. So it's going to come in with all of your settings applied. And now let's check out what those settings actually are. So over here we have added contrast. We're doing a little bit of a dynamic range boost here just by dropping highlights, dropping whites, adding shadows, adding blacks. We offset that with a little bit of contrast. So it's a very subtle boost in dynamic range that's perfect for just standard importing of regular landscapes, because that's something small that we really like to apply to all of our landscape images. We've added a little bit of clarity to just kind of boost the mid-tone detail. We've added vibrance and saturation, and look at this. We jump down here to HSL and we go to luminance. You'll see that we dropped the aqua, blue, and purple. This is what creates that subtle shift down in that plus blue effect that kind of makes our skies and makes the blue tones in the ocean or the Great Salt Lake here just a little bit more vivid. All right, so that's it. That's the only thing that we're doing actually to the blue tones. We're not actually changing saturation. We're just dropping the luminance to kind of amplify it a little bit more. That way we get a subtle effect overall. It's not overpowering ever. Okay, with our tone curve, we have our standard subtle contrast boosting S-curve here that we've shown you so many times. So let's just go down. With our detail, we have our standard sharpening that we've also showed you many, many times. We can zoom in and check it out and see if it's good. I think it'll be totally fine. We have a beautifully tack sharp image. We're shooting right in this lens's sweet spot, so it looks absolutely awesome. We have great depth of field too. We can actually see that it's not super blurry going out in this water. It actually is pretty sharp even out to here. And so that's great. We don't need to do anything there. I'm not going to do anything with noise reduction. We don't need it. And we have lens correction now enabled. So again, that's the major adjustment that we have with that profile correction. Over in the manual, if we drop into here when we look at lens vignetting, we don't have lens vignetting applied. Again, with a vivid import plus profile, this is making our lens vignetting adjustments for us. So we remove the lens vignetting, the manual lens vignetting from these images, because if you apply it here too, then you end up getting white edges. So remember, if you ever are getting white edges, it's probably because you're stacking profile lens vignetting plus manual lens vignetting on top of each other, or profile plus post crop vignetting. So just be a little bit careful and a little bit aware of that. Now, if we wanted to, we could add a radial filter just to do a little drop over here in kind of the color and just kind of bring attention to them. I kind of like it where it has this overall just really bright look. Let's bring out the feather and see if it's something I like. I kind of feel like it just looks cooler where it's all bright. So I'm just going to delete that off. Let's just take it off. It was a good idea. It was a good thought. I like to play around like that. All right, so this is looking really nice right here, guys. I'm pretty much done with this image. It looks great. We have a nice transition from our original import image just to a more poppy version, very simply with just 2 clicks. Hope you all enjoyed, and we'll see you all in the next video.